You're listening to T-Sequence Narratives. This is a story that stayed quiet while it was happening. It began with effort that slowly stopped being noticed. I used to believe effort left a trace, that if you showed up enough times, quietly, consistently, something would register. A look, a pause, a shift in the room. It felt reasonable, almost mathematical. Time multiplied by attention, care added slowly, day by day. At first, there were signs, small acknowledgments that barely deserved the name, a nod, a short reply, a moment where it felt like the space between us noticed me back. So I kept going. I adjusted my pace, learned when to speak and when not to, learned how to anticipate needs before they surfaced, learned the rhythm of another person's silence. None of this felt dramatic. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a habit forming quietly, like breathing changes when you move to a higher altitude. You don't announce it, your body just adapts. I showed up earlier than expected, stayed later than necessary, held space when there was nothing to fill it with. The effort didn't look like effort from the outside. It blended in. That was the point. I stopped counting after a while, stopped keeping mental notes of who reached out first, stopped noticing how often I was the one adjusting. It felt cleaner that way, less transactional, more real. But something else happened when I stopped counting. The effort stopped echoing. Conversations continued, but without weight. Plans existed, but only in theory. My presence became assumed, like furniture that had always been there. I noticed it first in the pauses, the way replies took longer, the way my absence didn't create a ripple. I tested it once, without admitting that's what I was doing, pulled back slightly, just enough to see if anything shifted. Nothing did. No questions, no confusion, no reaching. The space I left stayed exactly the same, so I stepped back in. It felt easier than leaving it open, like smoothing a wrinkle no one else saw. I told myself effort wasn't supposed to be measured, that meaning wasn't something you audited, that presence didn't require feedback. Those ideas sounded good late at night. They were harder to hold during the day. I kept listening closely. Not for gratitude, for awareness. It never came. The strange thing was how normal everything looked. There were no arguments, no clear moments of dismissal, nothing that could be pointed to and named. Just a steady absence of response. The effort didn't fail, it dissolved. I realized how invisible it had become the day I stopped doing one small thing, something routine. Something that had quietly carried weight for a long time. No one noticed. The day went on, messages arrived the same way they always had, the rhythm held. That was when it became clear. Effort doesn't disappear all at once. It thins, it spreads out until it no longer casts a shadow. I thought back to when it started, how deliberate everything had been, how carefully I had chosen words, how much attention I paid to timing. None of that existed anymore, not because it stopped, but because it blended too well. There's a kind of effort that asks to be seen. This wasn't that. This was the kind that tries to remove friction, to make things smoother, easier, more comfortable for everyone else. And comfort doesn't announce its source. I wondered when the balance shifted, when contribution turned into background noise, when presence became expectation. There was no single moment, no turning point to replay, just a gradual quieting of impact. I started to notice how often I explained things away, how quickly I filled gaps, how automatically I took responsibility for maintaining tone, pace, continuity. If something felt off, I adjusted. If something stalled, I moved it forward. If something went unsaid, I said it. That became the role. Roles are hard to see from the inside. They feel like personality, like preference. It took distance to recognize it. I imagined what would happen if I stopped entirely, not abruptly, not dramatically, just slowly, the same way the effort had been given. I wondered how long it would take for someone to notice the difference, if they would. That question stayed unanswered. Days passed, then weeks. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I felt something closer to neutrality, a calm detachment that hadn't been there before. It was easier to see things as they were when I wasn't constantly shaping them. I listened more than I spoke, observed patterns without correcting them, let silences sit. They sat comfortably. Nothing rushed in to fill them. That's when I understood the effort had already left the room long before I did. It had been functioning quietly in the background, unacknowledged, untracked. Removing it didn't create absence, it revealed one. I thought about all the small calibrations I used to make, tone adjustments, timing changes, energy management. Without them, things felt flatter, but not emptier, just unchanged. There was relief in that, a strange, weightless relief. I didn't have to decide anything, didn't have to confront or clarify. The disappearance had already happened. I replayed earlier moments with new understanding. Times I mistook familiarity for recognition. Times I confused continuity with care. It wasn't deception. No one had intended for the effort to vanish. It simply wasn't required anymore. I wondered how often this happens, how many people are quietly holding systems together without being seen, how many efforts are only noticed once they're gone. Some never are. The story didn't end. It didn't resolve into understanding or apology. It just softened, faded into a quieter version of itself. The effort that once felt central became optional, then irrelevant, then invisible. I stopped offering it without making an announcement. Life adjusted without comment. That was the final confirmation. Nothing had been taken, nothing had been lost. Something had simply stopped being acknowledged long before it stopped being given. And in that space, quiet and unchanged, the effort finally rested. You've been listening to T-Sequence Narratives. Some moments don't end, they just stop being spoken about.